In the far reaches of space, the Xylar Empire ruled with absolute power. Their fleets moved like shadows between stars. Their enemies did not fight back, they disappeared. Every species in the galaxy knew one truth: the Xylar only respected strength. And humans? They were not even worth respect. From a small blue planet called Earth, humans looked weak. Their ships were simple. Their bodies were fragile. They had no record of conquering other worlds. To the Empire, they were nothing more than a minor species waiting to be erased. So the Xylar made a decision. Earth would fall. No warnings. No negotiations. Just silence, and then destruction. A massive Xylar fleet entered the solar system. Their ships blocked out the light of distant stars. Weapons were charged. Systems were ready. It was going to be quick. But something felt strange. There were no defense systems detected. No fleets waiting. No signals of panic. Just quiet space around a peaceful planet. The Xylar commander stared at the screen. His cold eyes narrowed. Where are their defenses? No one answered. Moments passed. Then, something appeared. A single human ship. Small. Old. Alone. It slowly moved into the path of the Xylar fleet. For a second, no one spoke. Then laughter filled the command bridge. That is their defense, one officer said. This will be easier than expected, another added. The commander allowed himself a small smile. This was not a war. It was a demonstration. Then a signal came from the human ship. The room became quiet again. Play it, the commander ordered. A calm human voice filled the air. No fear. No anger. Just simple words. You should not be here. The officers looked at each other, then laughed again. The commander leaned forward. Prepare weapons. The Xylar fleet locked onto the small ship. Energy built up across hundreds of weapons. The space around them began to glow. Fire. A storm of energy shot toward the human ship. It was enough to destroy an entire planet. The blast hit directly. Light covered everything. For a moment, nothing could be seen. Then the light slowly faded. The Xylar officers watched, waiting to see debris. Waiting to see nothing. But the human ship was still there. Not damaged. Not moving. Just, there. The laughter stopped. The commander's smile disappeared. Scan the target. The systems responded quickly. No damage detected. Silence filled the room. That is not possible, one officer whispered. The commander stood up. Fire again. This time, the fleet used more power. Stronger weapons. Focused attack. Again, the blast hit the ship. Again, the light filled space. And again, nothing happened. The ship remained calm. Untouched. The Xylar crew began to feel something they had not felt in a long time. Confusion. Then fear. Before anyone could speak, the human ship sent another message. The same calm voice returned. We warned you. The commander clenched his fists. Destroy that ship. But before the fleet could fire again, something changed. One Xylar ship suddenly vanished. No explosion. No warning. It was just gone. The sensors showed nothing. No weapon detected. No energy spike. Nothing. Another ship disappeared. Then another. Panic spread across the bridge. What is happening? We can't track it. The commander shouted orders, but his voice no longer sounded strong. For the first time, the Xylar Empire did not understand the battlefield. And the small human ship still did not move. It simply waited. As if it already knew the outcome. As if this fight was already over. The Xylar command bridge was no longer calm. Alarms started to ring across every system. Red lights flashed. Officers spoke over each other, trying to understand what was happening. But there was no clear answer. Another Xylar ship vanished. No explosion. No signal. No trace. Just, gone. The commander stared at the main screen. His voice was sharp now, no longer confident. Track the weapon. Find the source. The sensors scanned everything around them. Space was empty. No energy waves. No hidden ships. No movement. It's not possible, one officer said quietly. There is no weapon. The commander turned toward him. Everything has a weapon. But deep inside, even he was starting to doubt that. The human ship still floated in front of them. Silent. Unmoving. Watching. Change formation, the commander ordered. Spread out. Do not stay in one line. The Xylar fleet quickly moved. Ships separated, creating distance between each other. It was a basic strategy. If one ship was hit, others would survive. But it did not help. Another ship disappeared. This time, the sensors caught something. For just a second, a strange signal appeared. Then it was gone. Replay that, the commander said. The screen showed the moment again. A small flash of energy. Too fast to understand. Too complex to analyze. What kind of technology is that? An officer asked. No one answered. The commander made a decision. Send fighters. Surround the human ship. Do not attack. Just observe. Dozens of small Xylar fighter ships moved forward. Fast. Agile. They surrounded the human vessel from all sides. For the first time, they were close enough to see it clearly. It did not look advanced. Its surface was simple. No visible weapons. No heavy armor. It looked weak. And yet, it was still alive. Scan it again, the commander said. The results came in. Energy levels, normal. Structure, stable. No weapon systems detected. The bridge became silent again. How is it doing this? Someone whispered. Suddenly, one of the fighter pilots spoke. Commander. I think it's watching us. The commander frowned. What do you mean? It's not just sitting there. It's reacting. Every time we move, it adjusts slightly. The commander looked closer. The pilot was right. The human ship was not random. It was aware. It was studying them. Before the commander could give a new order, the human ship sent another message. This time, the voice was the same, but the tone felt different. You are still here. No anger. No fear. Just disappointment. The commander felt something strange. For the first time in his long career, he felt small. But he pushed that feeling away. Prepare full attack, he ordered. All ships. Fire at once. This was no longer a test. This was war. The entire Xylar fleet charged their weapons. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of weapons. All aimed at one small human ship. Fire. Space exploded with light. The attack was massive. Stronger than anything before. It filled the area completely. There was no way anything could survive it. For a moment, the human ship disappeared inside the blast. The Xylar crew waited. Watching. Hoping. Then the light faded. And the ship was still there. Not damaged. Not even scratched. But this time, something was different. The ship moved. Slowly. Forward. The Xylar commander stepped back. No. The human ship was no longer just defending. It was advancing. Another Xylar ship vanished. Then another. Faster now. One by one. Like something was hunting them. Retreat, one officer shouted. But it was too late. The formation was breaking. Fear was spreading. The human ship stopped again. Right in the center of the battlefield. Surrounded by chaos. And then, it sent one final message. You were given a chance. The commander looked at the screen. His hands were shaking now. Because he finally understood something. This was not a battle. This was a warning. And they had ignored it. The sensors suddenly screamed with alerts. Commander, we are detecting something massive. Where? He asked. The officer's voice trembled. Everywhere. The commander looked out into space. And for the first time, he realized the truth. The small human ship was not alone. The Xylar fleet was breaking. Ships moved in all directions, trying to escape the unknown threat. Orders were shouted, then ignored. Formation was gone. Discipline was fading. Fear had taken control. The commander stood frozen for a moment, then forced himself to speak. All ships, regroup. Defensive positions. Do not act alone. But his voice no longer carried the same power. Because deep down, every officer knew the truth. They were not fighting a normal enemy. The sensors kept searching. Trying to find what was attacking them. Trying to understand. And then, they found something. Not a ship. Not a weapon. A pattern. Commander, one officer said, his voice shaking, it's not attacking randomly. The commander turned. What do you mean? The officer pointed at the screen. Look at the ships we lost. The display highlighted the missing ships. They formed a shape. A clear shape. The commander's eyes widened. That's a trap. The human ship was not just defending. It was controlling the battlefield. Every movement of the Xylar fleet was being watched, and used. Pull back from that zone, the commander ordered quickly. But it was too late. As the ships tried to move, space itself seemed to shift. A massive Xylar cruiser suddenly stopped. Its engines were still active. But it could not move. What's happening? The pilot shouted. Gravity spike detected, another officer yelled. The commander stared at the data. That's impossible, there are no planets here. But the numbers were clear. Artificial gravity. Strong enough to hold a warship in place. Then it happened. The trapped cruiser twisted, slowly, then crushed inward. Silently. Like an invisible hand had closed around it. In seconds, it was gone. No explosion. No debris. Just empty space. The bridge fell silent. No one spoke. No one moved. The commander whispered, they are using the environment. Asteroids nearby began to move. Not randomly. They shifted into new paths. Blocking escape routes. Cutting off ships. Turning open space into a battlefield full of hidden dangers. They are shaping space, an officer said in disbelief. The Xylar had always fought with power. Big weapons. Strong armor. Direct attacks. But this was different. The humans were not fighting harder. They were fighting smarter. New orders, the commander shouted, forcing control back into his voice. Do not chase the enemy. Hold position. Observe before acting. But it was already too late. Another group of ships tried to attack the human vessel. They rushed forward. Fast. Aggressive. confident in their numbers. The human ship did not fire. It did not move. Instead, the space around the attacking ships changed. A sudden burst of light. Then silence. All ships in that group disappeared at once. The remaining fleet stopped moving. No one wanted to be next. "They are predicting us," the commander said slowly. "They know what we will do, before we do it." The realization hit everyone at the same time. The humans were not reacting. They were planning. Every move. Every second. Another message came from the human ship. The calm voice returned. "You rely on strength." A pause. Then. "We rely on understanding." The commander closed his eyes for a second. This was no longer about winning. This was about survival. He looked at his officers. For the first time, there was no pride left in his voice. "Open a channel." The room froze. "Commander," one officer said. But the commander did not change his mind. "Do it." A connection opened. Silence filled the space between both sides. The commander spoke. "What are you?" There was a short pause. Then the human voice answered. Simple. Clear. "We are what happens." A small pause. "When a weak species refuses to stay weak." The commander felt something break inside him. Because now, he understood. Humans were never weak. They were just waiting. And the Xylar Empire had just made the worst mistake of their existence. The Xylar fleet was fractured, a shadow of its former strength. What had started as an easy conquest had turned into a desperate scramble for survival. Every ship was now on edge, constantly looking over its shoulder, expecting the next attack. But there were no more direct strikes, only silent, relentless pressure. The commander stood before the vast screens of the bridge, his mind racing, trying to piece together what had just happened. The humans weren't just clever, they were something else entirely. Their ships, their tactics, they weren't based on brute strength or technology alone. They were playing a different game. "Prepare the escape route," the commander barked. But even as the words left his lips, he knew it was too late. A voice broke the tense silence, one of the officers speaking up. "Commander, you need to understand, this isn't just a battle for them. They've been at war for centuries. They evolved differently than we thought." The commander turned sharply. "What do you mean?" The officer hesitated before responding. "The humans, they don't think like us. They don't rely on weapons or pure power. They've learned how to adapt, to survive." The commander narrowed his eyes. "Survive? We all survive." The officer looked him dead in the eyes. "Yes, but their survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about understanding their enemy better than their enemy understands them. They don't fight with sheer force, they fight with strategy, with patience." The commander paced the bridge, his mind racing. It was true. The Xylar Empire had underestimated the humans, assuming they would crumble in the face of superior firepower. But instead, they were being slowly dismantled, piece by piece, without a single shot fired from the human vessel. They were being outwitted, outmaneuvered, and outclassed in ways the Empire had never seen before. "How do we fight this?" another officer asked, his voice trembling. The commander glanced at the officer. "We fight like them." But that was easier said than done. For the first time, the commander felt something he had never felt before, doubt. He had commanded fleets for decades, his name feared across the galaxy. But now, in the face of the humans, he wasn't sure what he was up against. He had always believed that power and force were the keys to victory. But the humans were proving him wrong. Another officer spoke up, his face pale. "Commander, you need to understand the human species better. They thrive on hardship. Every challenge they face, they turn into a weapon." The commander turned back toward the view screen, his eyes lingering on the small human ship. It had not moved much since the battle began. It had no visible weapons, no glaring armor, yet it seemed unstoppable. It was as if the ship itself had been designed for this moment. It had been waiting for this war, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They fight smarter, the officer continued. Their strength lies in their adaptability. They don't use what they have, they use what you think they don't have. The officer's words hung in the air like a heavy weight. The commander clenched his fists. It wasn't just technology or power that the humans had. It was their mindset. Their willingness to face impossible odds. And it was that mindset that was breaking the Empire. The officer spoke again, his tone quieter this time. They know how to survive with less. They know how to fight when the odds are against them. The commander turned and faced the screen again, his face pale. For the first time, he saw it clearly. The reason the humans hadn't fought back with sheer firepower was because they didn't need to. They were allowing the Empire to destroy itself. The Xylar Empire was a behemoth, fueled by arrogance and its own unchallenged belief in its superiority. It had never considered that a species like humans, small, fragile, and seemingly weak, could ever pose a real threat. They didn't need to destroy the Empire with firepower. They just needed to turn the Empire's own arrogance against it. We've underestimated them, the commander muttered to himself, feeling the weight of the truth. Another officer spoke, breaking the silence. We must retreat now, before we lose everything. But the commander didn't answer. Because the truth was, it was already too late. The Xylar Empire had underestimated humanity. And now, it was paying the price. And as the commander looked out into the stars, he realized that the small human ship wasn't just standing still. It was watching. Waiting. Just like humanity had been waiting all along. The tension on the Xylar command bridge was unbearable. Silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Each officer, each crew member, had their eyes locked on the human ship. It was still there, calm, untouched, and waiting. The entire fleet had been scattered. The Xylars had lost more ships than they dared to admit, and the fear was starting to turn into panic. Commander, we can't keep running, one of the officers said. His voice was shaking now, the once proud tone of a conqueror now reduced to one of desperation. We need to fight back. We can't let them defeat us like this. The commander stood motionless, staring out at the vast emptiness of space. His mind was racing, but there was no clear path forward. Every option felt wrong. Every decision seemed to lead further into defeat. For the first time in his long career, he wasn't sure of anything. The Xylar Empire had never lost a war. Their technology, their ships, their firepower, no one had ever stood up to them and survived. Until now. Until the humans. We've underestimated them, the commander muttered under his breath. We believed they were weak. We thought we could crush them easily. But we were wrong. The human ship, still sitting in front of the fleet, seemed to taunt them with its stillness. The commander's mind flashed to the words the humans had said, "You should not be here." Those words had echoed in his mind ever since. They weren't a warning. They were a statement of fact. The humans hadn't feared them. They hadn't panicked. They hadn't fought with brute force. No, they had fought with something far more dangerous. Commander, the fleet is nearly destroyed. We need to retreat now before they finish us off, another officer urged, desperation creeping into his voice. Please. If we stay, we won't survive. But the commander didn't respond. His eyes were still locked on the human ship. He couldn't tear himself away. There was something mesmerizing about the way it floated there, so simple, so quiet. Yet there was an invisible power radiating from it, something far more terrifying than the weapons they had ever encountered. He finally spoke, his voice low and resigned. No. We're not retreating. The officer turned sharply. What? But, Commander. No, the commander repeated, his voice steady. We will fight them on our terms. If we leave now, we show weakness. And weakness is something they will never forget. The officer stared at him in disbelief. The commander's eyes darkened as he looked over the broken fleet. We can still win this. We have to. But as the words left his mouth, the commander's heart knew the truth. This battle was already over. The humans weren't just surviving, they were in control. And in the end, it wasn't about what the Xylar Empire had. It wasn't about power or strength or technology. It was about the human will to survive. And that was something the Xylar Empire would never be able to match. Another message appeared on the screen from the human ship. The commander's stomach twisted. He already knew what it would say. The calm, emotionless voice filled the command bridge again. You were given a chance. The commander's grip tightened on the armrest of his chair. He knew that the human ship had been watching them. It had been watching the entire time, waiting for them to make their move. And now it was too late. With a sudden flash of light, the human ship moved. Not forward, but upward, toward the center of the fleet. The Xylars were ready to fight. They had their weapons charged. They were prepared for one final push. But the humans didn't attack. They simply watched. And then, in an instant, the environment around them began to change. The once empty space began to warp. Asteroids that had been sitting motionless for hours suddenly shifted, as though the very fabric of space was bending at the human ship's command. One by one, Xylar ships began to shake, their outer hulls creaking as the gravitational pull around them grew stronger. Some tried to fight back, firing their weapons, but it was no use. They were trapped in a field of twisted gravity, unable to move, unable to escape. It was like they were caught in a web. The human ship wasn't attacking. It was controlling everything. No, the commander shouted. We need to break free. Activate the emergency thrusters. But it was too late. The human ship didn't need to fire a single shot. It had already won. One by one, the Xylar ships began to crumble under the weight of the invisible force, their hulls cracking and breaking apart. There was no explosion. No dramatic final clash. It was quiet, methodical, and devastating. The Empire, once a titan of the stars, was falling apart piece by piece. The commander stood there, frozen. Watching as his fleet was destroyed before his eyes. The truth hit him like a hammer. The humans hadn't fought the Empire with weapons. They had fought with patience, with understanding, with adaptability. And now, the Empire was gone. The galaxy would never forget the lesson it had learned this day. The human ship moved again, slowly drifting past the shattered remains of the Xylar fleet. And as it did, one final message appeared on the screen. We warned you. And then, it was gone. The commander turned to his officers, his voice barely a whisper. It's over. The Xylar Empire had made the biggest mistake of its existence.